Hello, hello. It is November. It's November. Jesus Christ. It's November 9th, 2024. Um, I had another day at the chess club, and I actually only played four games, league games today. We had a bunch of guests that just wanted to play chess for fun. They've been here before, Liam and Jackson, I think. Yeah, so only four league games. So yeah, that's all I got. um, Not much to say. Uh, I mean, we can just hop straight into it. Usually I ramble about for a minute and a half, but not really much to say. I guess I can blabber about Anthony. So it's four games against Anthony. Okay, big shocker. Yeah, I mean, obviously he's running it, so he's got to be there every time we meet. I'm there every time we meet because I'm interested and I want to play. But yeah, I mean, he's just like kind of becoming my like main rival now. Like we just play so often, and yet I feel like I keep losing so much when I shouldn't. I mean, it's inevitable, but I feel like I should win more. You know, you know what it is. Let's pretend I totally set this up ahead of time, and uh, let's do this live. So this is not the first game. This is the first game I have. All right, game 1 out of 4. Playing white against Anthony. We go into our normal French Tarrasch, which I guess now it's a Rubinstein French. So funny in the actual game, he tried to move his knight way over here to d7, and I'm like, the knight doesn't go that far. So knight d7 is the main move here to allow knight f6, and then after it takes, you take back with this knight, so you keep a knight on f6. But he didn't do that, so he played knight e7, which apparently is +1 on move 4, but I couldn't really explain why it's +1. Yeah, I mean, from here, knight f3 and f5, which is, I mean, it makes sense. You're trying to develop your bishop, so knight f5. c3, bishop e7. I guess this is where the start of it went wrong. I went to trade off the dark squared bishop, and I thought I wanted this because, well, first of all, you're not going to take, because that's just a waste of time. Also because if takes, now castle, I thought this was kind of unpleasant, but I guess it's fine if you just kick my knight out. But anyway, I figured, okay, my pawns around dark squares here. I can trade this off, and my position isn't much weaker. So that's what I went for. And of course, computer is going to say it's not the way to go, but sure. So I take, he takes, I play bishop d3. I mean, pretty simple moves. And in Anthony's style, he tries to fianchetto the French bishop, which is fine. Knight e5. I wanted to kind of restrict his knight, which I didn't even restrict at all because he still plays knight d7. So I'm like, okay, I'll trade. And what I saw from a distance, so around here, I saw it around here. If I can play queen g4, knight f6, I'll have a fork on the queen and the king here. So that's what I did. That's what I did. So queen g4, after he recaptured the queen, he plays knight h6, which I thought was a decent counterattacking measure to prevent, well, air quotes around prevent this fork. But I realized that as you go down the capture chain, which is what happened in the game, it doesn't actually work, and I'm up in exchange. So if you can see the tactic here, good job. But if you want to pause and take a look at it, now's the time to do so. Because the move here is knight f6. Obviously, you can't take because the queen is pinning the pawn. So only move is king h8. And after I take the queen, he takes my queen. I take his rook, and his knight can't take anything here of value, I should say. So, I win a rook for my knight. He recaptures, and then I just want to kick his knight away because, why not? right? So I played h3. I was actually gonna play f3 at first, which I guess is still fine, but I didn't want to allow him into my position and then potentially blunder another fork. Oh, actually no, that's covered. Okay, so that doesn't even work. But yeah, I didn't want to like let him jump into my position at all, so I just played h3. He goes back to f6, rook fe1, rook d8. I played this move b4 to try to prevent c5. But then after I played it and hit the clock, I'm like, wait, you can still play c5 anyway, right? Because take. And I can't take this way because it's pinned. My bishop is pinned. So if I had to spend a move doing this, then it'd be like take. And I mean, obviously white is still better because white still has the exchange, but it's not what I was trying to go for with the whole b4 idea. So, but he didn't play c5. He played rook d6, which I spent time here because I didn't know what he was trying to achieve with rook d6. Like, these pawns are like defended by other pawns, so that's fine. There's no like random. Well, if you're gonna sack, you probably would have sacked the last turn, and I don't know, like getting off of this square doesn't. You're not blocking anything by being on the square, so I didn't really know what he was going for. I'm gonna just adjust my camera here. I didn't know what he was going for, and so I like spent time trying to figure out like what's his plan. I couldn't figure out what his plan was, and then I started looking at my moves. C4 was bad because I blundered the pawn. I just played rook e3, which is still a bad move actually, because he has knight d5, forking the bishop the pawn and the rook. And then I walked into this, which I didn't need to walk into. So I put rook c2 to kick his knight away. And I can't even retake this pawn in response because his knight's defending it. But I was like, okay, let me not blunder more. Let me figure out what's the imbalance in the position. Like, what is my advantage in this position? I have the rook for the knight. The rook, obviously, I have two rooks. So what am I going to do with two rooks? I played a3 first because I didn't want to lose this. What do you do with two rooks? You double them up. So I'm like, okay, let me double my rooks. And apparently that's not even the way to go, which is crazy. He defends the c pawn, but then I try to attack one of the defenders by playing bishop e4. I'm going to trade this off and then win a pawn. He plays g6, which doesn't actually like affect the position. I thought he had to play c6 to not let this trade happen and win a pawn. I mean, yeah, this bishop just feels awful now, but I don't know. Maybe you could play like a5 later and get some scope here. But in the game, he played g6, which apparently is a really bad mistake because, I mean, it gives me what I wanted, right? Bishop takes d5, and whatever it takes back on d5, I'm going to be able to recapture on c7. He declines the rook trade, which makes sense because, I mean, why would you trade rooks here? But then I win a free pawn, and now I attack your other pawn on a6. I'm also threatening back rank mate, which was like a secret idea here. So it's like two threats. I'm threatening a6 and I'm threatening back rank. So obviously he has to defend back rank. So I take the a6 pawn. He pushes b5 to not lose the other one, to which I attack it. He defends with bishop c4, and I'm like, okay, that's a good move. But I have a4 trying to undermine the pawn that kind of keeps this little formation together. Obviously you can't take because I take the bishop, and I mean, if you don't take, then I'm just going, right? So he takes my pawn, and I'm just like, sure. I have a5. Now I have a pass pawn. It is on the color square of the bishop here, which is a little unfortunate, but I figured I can still make something happen. Like, I still have the exchange, so I should be fine. King f7, a6, pushing the pawn, rook d2. I thought he was trying to get behind the pawn, so I was like, no, I'm getting behind the pawn. Now this rook doesn't have a job. King e7, which again, I thought he really needed to go like rook d8 here to try to stop the promotion, like rook d8, bishop d5. But he plays king e7. I push a7, and he tries to defend the square with the bishop. So he plays bishop d5. I win another pawn, and he plays king d6. And here there's two winning moves. Trying try to figure out what I played in this position here. So what I played in the game was rook takes d5. And this gets rid of the defender of the a8 square, so now you cannot stop promotion. And here Anthony resigned because, I mean, I'm getting a queen, right? So let's just say take, promote. I mean, I'm up a queen and a pawn at this point. So yeah, pretty clean game, pretty clean conversion. Apparently here the other move that also wins and is like allegedly mate in 25, which sure. Rook a6, which now that I've played it is not actually mate in 25 or whatever. Oh, now, okay, whatever. Stupid computer. Apparently this is also winning, but this is kind of like, I saw this from a distance. I knew this was an idea to promote the pawn, and especially because the rook never went back to d8 or c8, like you don't have another way to kind of prevent me from getting a queen. So yeah, clean first game, all kind of stemming from the tactic of knight f6 check. I guess he didn't quite, I don't know if he didn't see the tactic or if he thought that this counterattack was fine enough. It wasn't, right? Because again, capture sequence, queen for queen, rook for nothing. So we can move on to game number 2. So we just switch colors, of course, and now I have the black pieces. I wanted to switch it up this game, so he's an e4 player, fine. But I played g6, so I'm going into a modern defense. I have Gotham Chess's course on... Oh, I just realized I never changed the date to the 9th. I have Gotham Chess's course on the modern defense, and he has chapters on e4 openings, or some e4 opening systems / setups, d4 setups, some of it transposes, blah, blah, blah. But I wanted to bust it out against e4 just because it's a little less common. And, I mean, generally speaking, I just like positions in which I have a kingside attack to attack their king. I find those just really enjoyable. So I've been trying to incorporate this more into my repertoire. It's just hard to find a time to play it over what I already play. So when would I play this over my Caro Kann, or when would I play this over my Dutch, That I don't really know. But maybe I'll figure it out one day. Anyway, getting back to the game, he continues with knight f3, d6, bishop d3, knight c6. Pretty common moves so far. I will note that if you play d5 here, I'm totally okay with playing knight e5, and if you take, I take, of course. Just, no problems for me. Bishop e3, a6. So I played a6 because, and I'm probably misremembering the actual course. From what I remember, a6 is a good idea against bishop c4 lines, because if they, for some reason, well, I wouldn't say for some reason, but if they decide to long castle with queen d2, knight c3, long castle, I can very easily start a attack on his king, which is on the queen side, by playing b5, right? And it would hit the bishop here. I can get another move with b4 hitting if, let's say the knight was there, and then I can reinforce with a5, a4, bring my bishop over. I don't know if I would bring it over this way, or if I would just go here, but I can actually pretty quickly get a queenside attack going by just throwing in this a6 move, especially against bishop c4 setups. But he just continues with bishop c3, or knight c3, sorry. This is a very simple way to play against hyper-modern openings as an e4 player if you don't know anything already. It's very solid. Your center is super sturdy. There's no clear weaknesses. It's just, I don't actually totally know how to play the position after, let's say I castle as white, for example. If after white castles, what do you do? I don't know. I decided to strike in the center with e5, just asking him, all right, how do you want to play this position? Do you want to trade and open it up? which, you know, like if we went into something like this, I would have been totally fine, right? I would just played like 97 castle. I don't know, maybe like bishop g4 and kind of just like play chess. Don't think too hard. I mean, think a little bit, but not too hard. But he played d5, which is kind of playing into what I want, right? Like I said before, I love attacking chess. I've had great success with opposite side castling. Well, maybe not great success, but I've had success with opposite side castling, for example, for like King's Indian structures. The one game against Wayne I played like last week that didn't get recorded was a great King's Indian attack. But yeah, so he played d5. I mean, it's the most principled move, but it plays into what I like. So you kind of have to like think about, like, do you play against the player, or do you play against or play with the principles of chess? But anyway, d5, 97 castle, knight h6, h3, and here I blundered with what seems like such a simple and like natural move, castles. So castling was a blunder. Why is it a blunder? Well, Anthony saw why it was a blunder, and the move is queen d2. And I actually can't protect this the knight one more time, nor does it have a square for it to run to. h3 was actually kind of sneaky and a way to take out one of the squares for my pawn for my knight to run to. I mean, f5 was always covered by this pawn, and me castling put my king on the square where it could have retreated technically. So castling was a blunder. Is just not really a thing I expected to have happen to me, but here we are. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna lose my knight. Let me just continue getting my development and like my piece play. So I played f5, which you know, not the best move. I should have played my knight to e5, which I probably would not have done. But I played f5. I'm like, all right, let me at least continue with what I wanted to do, even though I'm gonna lose a knight regardless. So he takes my knight, I lock it down with f4, and then he trades off my bishop, and I take it back. So I'm down a clean knight, but I have a King's Indian-ish setup with the very locked structure pointing towards his king. Oops. I mean, obviously his pawns are pointing towards my king, but he doesn't quite have anything going here yet, so maybe it's okay. King h2. When I saw King h2, I was kind of not happy because what I imagined well, if I was playing white, I would have played rook h1, king g1, king f1, king e1, king d1. And like, yeah, you're wasting like 5 tempo, but you're basically saying you don't have an attack. You cannot stop my king from escaping in 5 moves. Whether that's right or not, I don't know. But that's what I thought he was going to do. But I was like, okay, well, I got to go for it anyway, right? Like, what else am I doing in this position? h6, because I wanted to push g5, and I can't do it immediately because of the knight. Knight e2, g5, you know, again, continuing with my plan, trying to attack his king. And then he plays g3, which I thought was strange because you're kind of opening the position a little bit, right? If ever takes, I take, and like I keep this pawn structure. So I was like, g3 is like, okay, sure. Knight g6, and then he actually did take on f4, which kind of surprised me. I thought for a second maybe I want to take here, but then he trades off another piece of mine, and I'm already down a knight, so probably not the best idea. So take back. I mean, computer says it's better than playing f4, which sure. But he played rook g1. I got out of the way just because I need to move my knight, and I don't want to stay pinned ever. Rook g2, I thought was a pretty decent move, right? You're going to try to double up your rooks, and I'm going to have a hard time really doing much of anything. So I thought this was slowly starting to slip away. I mean, it's already slipped away because I blundered a knight, but I just went for knight h4 just to, like, you know, even if the plan is lost and hopeless, I still need to try. Maybe he'll mess up. But he takes, I take back with the queen, and then he plays knight g1, which I thought was, at first I was like, ew, that looks like a horrible move. But as I looked at it, I'm like, oh, that's actually pretty logical. You're trying to defend your h3 pawn. And also like somewhat stops f3. Not totally, but somewhat. But I decided to go to bishop d7. I wanted to go rook g8 to trade off the rook, but I also wanted to get this other rook into the game too. So unfortunately, I had to play a slow move, bishop c7, to try to enable that. And that's one of the things I like don't like to admit. Sometimes you just need to play a slow move to reap more benefits later on, even in an attack where every tempo kind of matters a lot. Sometimes the slow move is just like, you just need to do it for bigger payoffs later, even if tempo is so important. Queen d1, which, I didn't totally see the point of this move. I was like, maybe he wants to play queen f3, but I was like, okay. Rook g8, rook g8, rook g8. Now I have the g file. His knight is kind of tied to defending the h3 pawn, right? Because if it ever moved, it's just shablam. So, it's like my position, even though I'm down a knight, is starting to look pretty okay. This bishop isn't doing much, and it probably won't ever really do much unless you get here and here, but it's not so simple because your king is kind of stuck and it's pinned to the h3 pawn. So you can't even do something like this, well, it's pinned too, but all right, this idea doesn't even work because take, and this is pinned. So I was like, okay, this is looking pretty good. But yeah, so after I played rook g8, he played queen d2. Apparently this is mate in 6. And I didn't see it, as you could probably guess by me saying apparently. I didn't see the mate in 6 here. And I'm going to move my camera here. I actually tried putting this position on a board to see if I can find it. So on my bed is actually the position. Well, what I concluded from trying to look at the position over the board. So I went into looking at the position on my bed, on the board, with the context that there's mate in 6 and it's not f3, right? So in the chess.com analysis, the second best move here is f3. The first best move is mate in 6, and the third best move is rook takes g1 with all zeros. I didn't know this when I was looking at the board, but my conclusion at when I was looking at it, the board was rook g1, which turns out is a draw, or zeros, I should say. So I thought king g1, bishop h3, and I thought he had to play bishop f1, but it turns out he doesn't. He can play f3. And believe it or not, this is fine because of what? Queen g3, king h1, king f3, king here. And I can just basically make a draw. Right, this would be threefold. So yeah, I didn't find the mate in 6, but apparently the mate in 6 is queen g5, f3, queen g3 check, king h1, bishop takes h3, knight takes h3, queen takes h3 check, queen h2, queen f3, queen g2, queen g2. I didn't see that, obviously. Even after looking at the position again for another like 5 to 10 minutes, I didn't see it. Yeah, so I didn't see mate in 6. So instead I played in the game f3. I figured, okay, I'm cutting off the square. Maybe I have ideas of like coming in with rook g2. He played bishop f1. And then I sacrificed the rook, right? Obviously you kind of have to take, right? If you don't take, like, if you just, I don't know, how do you do nothing here? Queen e3. Like, if you do nothing, I just won my I just won my knight back, and I'm pretty happy. So I was like, okay, you're probably gonna take, and I played bishop takes h3. So here Anthony just resigned. It looked pretty lost, like, all things considered. The only, I mean, again, the computer's saying mate in 20, which I don't want to believe, but queen c3 was the way to go, which now that I'm looking at it makes a lot of sense. Queen g5, king h1, or king h2, and I don't actually have much of anything here. Bishop g2 is the move. Yeah, so I guess it's not actually totally lost. Queen g1 now, or king g1 now. Bishop h3, king h2. Yeah, and it just wants to go back again. Oh, c5. Really, c5? Oh. I can't believe that's losing. c7. Oh, yeah, duh. Alright, well, anyway. Anthony resigned in this position after bishop takes h3. He thought it was just lost. I thought it was pretty lost too, but again, computer manages to find a way and says queen c3 is the way to go. All right, very well. But yeah, this was you know, ignoring the fact that I blundered a knight in the first, like, what, 8 moves or something, 9 moves. The game went pretty well. I kind of got what I wanted for most of the game. I was saying after we played that maybe this exchange on f4 wasn't the way to go, because it's like you get the open g file, but I also get the open g file, and it's kind of double-edged, like, who actually benefits from it. But then when he put his knight on g1, I was like, that looks a little suspicious. But yeah, so 2 wins in a row for me, which is pretty nice. Let's move on to the third one, where I have the white pieces again, and I remembered that I had some notes on the last time we played a Catalan, which was over the board. So I wanted to try to play it again and see if he would go into the line that I prepared. So d4, I have a little like rant about the Catalan after, which I will, yeah, I'll do it after all the games, which is this and one more. So he plays the same way that he did when we played it last time, which is when I played a 25-minute game against him. So we get this like Queen's Indian kind of setup. I finally play c4, castles, knight c3, and I was totally expecting him to play d5 here. That's what he played last time, but this time he played bishop b4, and I was thrown off. I was thinking about playing queen c2, but I thought this was just like a big waste of time. It was the best move technically, but I just decided, okay, well, you know, I know it's not the worst thing in the world if I get doubled c-pawns. I'll figure it out, right? It should be okay. I played bishop g5. He played h6. And, you know, I probably should have taken... I don't know why I didn't. I forgot what I didn't like about... I forgot what I didn't like about taking on f6. Like, you know, if I do this, it's one less defender of the e4 square, so I can actually push e4 much faster. So I can go queen c2. And it's like, how do you really prevent e4? I mean, if you do this, it's fine. Like, I'll still play e4 next move. So I ended up going back to f4, which was kind of stupid. I just wasted time. We trade on c3. He plays d6, queen c2, knight bd7, and rook b1. I felt like everything was going fine here. Like, apparently it's minus 1.5, which is one of the reasons, or one of the things I need to complain about with the Catalan, is that, like, I just don't get it. It's minus 1.5, even though material is equal. I have the bishop pair. I have doubled c pawns. But, you know, it's just... I mean, I know why it's bishop e4, why it's minus 1.5. But it's just like, wow. But he plays a5, which doesn't explain why it was minus 1.5. But then I played e4, and I totally thought this was adequately defended because I only saw the knight attacking e4. But no, his bishop is also attacking e4, and that's why it was minus 1.5 in that last position over here. It's because you can just play this immediately, and it's skewering my queen and my rook. But he saw it a little later, which I guess same difference. Well, I guess the difference is that I'm losing a pawn. So I get out of the way, and now I'm down in exchange, and my pawn structure kind of sucks. So it's like, what do I have? What do I have for this? I don't know. It feels awful. He plays d5, which I thought favored me because I can take, and I'm like kind of like getting rid of one of my doubled pawns, which I thought was fine. But yeah, after knight d5, I need to defend my c3 pawn. So I play that. I totally just missed that he's going to take my bishop as well. So maybe a better move would have been like bishop d2. But what I played in the game was queen d3, so he takes and I take, and I'm like, okay, my pawn structure really sucks. But I didn't think this was a problem. Like, there's no attack here per se, so I should be okay. Knight f6, knight e5. Knight e5 is a pretty decent move because it opens up my bishop, which is like kind of like the whole point of this opening. Also, my knight is pretty nicely placed as well. But it's still -3 because chess is great. He played rook c8, and I thought bishop b7 was going to win the exchange back, but apparently it's not even that good, which is crazy. So he played queen d6, which doesn't, stop the exchange from happening. So I took on c8, and I was like, okay, so I have my exchange back. We technically both have, or no, he has 7 pawns, I have 6 pawns, so I'm still down a pawn. My structure is really bad, so I guess this evaluation is pretty accurate. But I mean, I figured, okay, at least I'm not like down in exchange anymore, so this should be pretty playable. F5, I guess, was not the way to play it, but he plays rook e8, which I'm not really sure what he's going for here. I guess maybe in the future he'll play f6, but I figured it's not going to be for a while, so I should be okay. I take on e6 because, again, my f-pawns are doubled. I figured might as well just move one of the double pawns over and be okay. But he takes back, and I'm like, all right, well, that's fine. f4, just trying to solidify this knight here. My king was already kind of exposed. There's no dark square diagonal to abuse, so I'm just like, yeah, f4, sure. Knight d4, now he can start playing f6. But after I played f5, he played rook f6, and I totally missed the move that really would have equalized this game, which was, well, not that. The move I was supposed to play was knight g4, because his rook is kind of stuck. Queen a3 is a proper follow-up, but take, or maybe knight takes. I take the pawn here, or sorry, it's my move, so I can go here. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he has an extra pawn, but I have rook for knight. It's funny because the computer says this is all zeros, but I feel like I would play this for an advantage. But I played c4 in that position, which is not the way to go. He finds knight b4, getting tempo on my queen, and And after I move my queen, he wins the a2 pawn. I thought for some reason I could trap his knight, but that was just never going to happen because he can go back to b4. And I just like quickly played king g2. I was running pretty low on time here. I don't really remember where I spent all of my time, if I'm going to be honest. I think it was during the point where I played bishop b7. I was like really trying to make some knight fork work here. But yeah, that just wasn't really going to happen. And I think that's where I lost a lot of my time. Because now I'm operating under like a minute and he still has like 3 minutes, which is really bad. So king g2 just immediately loses to knight c3, forking my queen and my rook. I try to counterattack, but then he takes, I take, and he takes. And I mean, from here, it's a time scramble for me, but for him, he's got 2 minutes to figure it out. So as I'm going to fast forward through the rest of these moves here, just because it looks pretty dire. The only chance I thought I had in this position was like after these checks, plopping my knight into g7. So like let's just say here, knight g7, and if he like somehow doesn't see, I can like try to get some cheeky checkmate here. So that's what I was going for in the time scramble, or the time scramble for me. But as you can see, he defends with rook d8, and after I played knight g6, I ran out of time like before I managed to actually hit the clock on knight g6. But yeah, I mean, this position was pretty lost anyway. I'm never really gonna could catch these pawns, but the rook is, I mean, there's just nothing here. So yeah, he went into a different line from what he played last time. I just didn't react totally well, and then yeah, I just blundered in exchange. So, you know, it happens. It's all good. We go again. So the next game is actually the last game of the league games that I've played today. I have the black pieces, and I decided to go back into a Karo Khan, so we're going to get the short variation with bishop e2. He plays bishop e3, which I think he played last time against me on Tuesday. Was it Tuesday? Or was it last week? Might have been Tuesday. I don't know. But he played bishop d3 line again. So I remembered I looked at this exact position, and I remember the best move is actually queen b6, which is ironic because when we were talking like a week ago, I was telling him like, yeah, I looked at a lot of positions where I have this queen b6 attacking b2, and in every position that I looked at, which is admittedly only like 4 or 5, it was actually not even that good to take the b2 pawn. But apparently, in this position, I can take on b2 if he doesn't defend it, and it's good. So when I saw this as I was inputting the moves, I was like, wow, that's a real kick in the dick. It's just like, I looked at so many positions where I can't take on b2, and now in this position we get in the game, I can take on b2. Just great. But anyway, knight bd2, knight d7, castles, and then I take on d4. He takes back, and apparently this is already losing, which is crazy. Again, I can and should take on b2, but it's already +1. Back here, it's actually basically 0. But apparently knight d7 wasn't the way to go. So after this exchange on d5, I just put more pressure on it. I'm not too concerned about ruining my pawn structure. I can always just play like g6, and my light squares are fine. My dark squares, I don't know, maybe I'll need to go back, but it'll be all right. So he takes, I take back on f5, we trade bishops, and we get knight f3, knight e7, rook e1, and long castle. So in this position here, I actually was up like a minute or so, and I spent the time difference that I had over him to think, how do I want to play this position? Do I want to go for taking this pawn, rook b1, and then try to win this pawn later? But I was like, well, you're getting b7. Actually, you're not getting b7 yet, but I just figured, okay, well, he's going to go here. He gets to open b file. I got to run away and spend a bunch of time with my queen to try to win this pawn, right? And it's like, what moves do I even have to win this pawn? Like knight g6, knight d7. I have to go like queen c7, but if I'm taking this pawn, I have to go here and then like, I don't know, here. I have to go here, 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 here. And it's like, that's just not, that does not look fun. That doesn't look right. So I long castled, which is also not right. Fantastic. He continued with knight d4. I didn't really know what he was going for with this move. Like, it doesn't really attack anything in my position, right? This is covered. That's not happening. That's not happening. I guess this could happen because it's protected. But anyway, knight e4, centralizing my knight. f3, he gets my knight away, which I was like, oh, I didn't think you would do that because it kind of opens up this pin. But I was like, sure. So knight g5, queen d2. I don't know why I played h6 here. I played h6 out of instincts when I really should have just went for knight e6. Just adding more pressure to this knight. But yeah, I just played h6. F4, and now I played knight e6, again putting pressure on the knight. In the game, he actually tried playing knight f5, but I was like, oh, you're pinned. This doesn't work. So rook d1, knight c6, putting more pressure on the knight on d4. And I totally missed c3 as a resource to defend. I don't know how I missed it, but I did. And I was like, okay, well, this sucks. I probably don't actually have an attack anymore. Or at least, like, I can't really abuse the pin quite as well anymore because I don't have a pawn to try to, like, poke at the d4 knight. So I just played g5. You could take, but that doesn't seem right. So he played king h1, finally getting out of this pin. But I take the pawn on f4. He trades knights, and he plays queen c2. So I saw a sneaky little idea here, which was d4. And the idea is that I'm going to take here on g2, and it's checkmate. And I remember in the game, I was looking at this, and I was like, okay, d4, bishop e3, bishop f3. And I don't really remember exactly what I was thinking after this move. Maybe it was like here or something like that. Again, I don't remember exactly, but there was something I wanted to play here that I thought would make sense. But no, it doesn't make sense. So in this position, after I played d4, trying to threaten queen g2, he just plays queen f5 check, taking one of my pawns. And with this extra move, he gets to play bishop f3, which, again, it's like the weirdest thing. Like, I had something planned for this move, and I couldn't remember what it was, like, 2 seconds later. So, fantastic job by me. I played queen b6, trying to attack the b2 pawn and go around this way, which I don't know why I thought that would work, because your bishop is defending the b2 pawn, but here we are. Yeah, so he captures back on d4, and I really probably should have, like, I could have taken on d4 with the rook, but for some reason I thought I could take on b2. Again, I don't remember why. I think I thought I could go back here for some reason, but no, that's just completely wrong. Rook b1, and I'm just, like, busted here. Right, if I move my my queen, he's got this, and apparently it's mate in 4. Right, I was just thinking, oh, you're just gonna win my queen, like, and that's game over anyway. Yeah, so I don't know. I just, like, totally did not see things correctly. So he played rook a b1. As you probably saw, I played rook takes d4, which, again, like, why am I just hanging my queen? Just, like, move the queen or something, or at least take here first. I don't know. Like, something in my brain just collapsed this game. So rook d4, he takes my queen. I take this and I'm like, I don't actually have anything. Why am I playing like this? And after a few other moves, he sacks his rook, and he's basically just got checkmate coming. Yeah, here it's mate in 5, but I mean, I'm just losing everything at this point, right? Losing with the rook, the knight is hanging, can't even do anything with the knight. I'm down a pawn and a queen. So I resigned here. What else can I do, right? And it's mate in 5. So overall today, I mean, if it wasn't already obvious, Anthony is basically my main rival here because we play so often. We play these lines and, you know, such is life. I'm not too mad that we went 2-2, but I definitely like. I wouldn't say should not have because I did have something planned, but yeah, the Catalan game was just not it, and I've been very negative towards the Catalan these last like week or two. I've been trying to play it online and just like Tenno Rapid online, and it's too complicated. And I kind of knew that going in. It was probably a little naive of me to think that I could learn it in a month. Yeah, no, that didn't happen. It's a little too dense of an opening to learn because you're basically learning like 4 different openings, or it's like 7 different openings, or 20 different openings in one opening. And I don't really have that brain capacity to memorize all that crap and to like memorize the plans for each of those. Like the small differences in setups means different plans, means different moves, and it's just like it's too much. That said, I still want to keep something to play with d4. I just don't know what it's going to be. I have an idea, but I've also heard it's not good. But then again, it's not like we're GMs, so I can kind of just play anything that's not horrible, and it should be fine. But we'll see how that goes. So I'm probably at this point just officially going to drop the Catalan for something else for a d4 opening. I'm not playing the London. I refuse to play the London. But past that, it's kind of just like, I want a d4 opening just so that I have the option of playing e4 or d4. Whether it's going to be just a normal Queen's Gambit declined or some other d4 opening, I don't know, but we'll figure it out. But yeah, I'm probably dropping the Catalan at this point. And Anthony's my main rival. All right. Thanks for watching. And see you Saturday, I hope.